As we speak, there's been another grid collapse that had affected many states in the country. Nigeria's electricity conundrum continues. It has become almost intractable despite the deregulation of that sector. Some will even say that that sector has not improved in terms of efficiency, despite citizens paying several times over what they used to pay for electricity some years back. Which way forward? Some have suggested the need to break down the DISCOs and GENCOs, that's the distribution and generating companies, under whatever legal arrangement, such that each operator covers a smaller jurisdiction. Perhaps that may help their efficiency. Others have argued that indeed green energy and renewables is the way to go. But yet others have fired back that Nigeria needs to press into service all forms of energy that it could find, including the abandoned coal in places like Enugu in southeast Nigeria. We cut over from that discussion and look at our diasporans and what they could offer Nigerians. Some accounts have it that Nigeria has about 16 million of our citizens outside the country. Most of them are still very much connected to the motherland and daily agonize about her state. But are there ways to ensure the engagement of diaspora Nigerians are value-adding and that they could one day mobilize for a great turnaround of Nigeria? Are there things we need to learn from our diasporans and things they too need to learn from us? And for the youth, is it all rosy out there? Are the streets of the abroad, as they call it, actually littered with gold and silver? Joining us to discuss this double-barreled issue today is Alhaji H.F. Dauda, Habu F. Dauda, the Moisoro of Fika. He is an ICT consultant to two electricity distribution companies, and he is himself a former diasporan, having stayed for more than 30 years in the United States before coming back home. Welcome, Moisoro.
Thank you, sir.
It's great to be here on our show, The Nationalist.
Thank you.
I'll dive right at it. You know, what exactly is wrong with our energy sector, especially the electricity sector?
Well, you know, we are all very aware of the problems. I think the key things that needs to be addressed are three separate areas. We have to look at ownership, not who, but the type of ownership. And then we have to look at the business model. Can it make money, or is it a social welfare, service? Then we have to look at the behavior of the users, because that's a critical component to the business itself.
Ownership, business model,
and the users.
And the user.
Yes, because all three we have to address them at once. You can't do one and leave any other two. It will not be successful. So in ownership, we said privatization was where we went to. Privatization worked to a point. But how can we privatize a business and then ask the business owner to put their targets as improvement in losses?
Reduction of losses.
Reduction of losses. So that's not going to be a profitable business. We're not telling them improvement in equipment. We're not telling them improvement in skills. We're not telling them improvement in profitability. We're saying improve losses. So if you improve losses, then what? The network still remains as it is, or do you do something? No, okay, we say improve the network. How? Because the business model does not give you enough returns to improve the network. So how do you improve the network? So government, at some point, whether they are deliberate or whether they are by force, must invest. I
mean, government has assumed, or perhaps, that they could never make profit in that sector.
Thank you. And they agreed that they will, and probably true that they cannot make profit in that sector. But government can do many things at the beginning. That is, build the network, then ask for ownership of the profits. It's like a concession. You build the network, and then you give it to them and say, we are sharing in the concession. But these days, what happens is that when the discos run into trouble financially, the government will give them money out of nowhere to make up for the losses. So is that going to help us? So power in Nigeria and across many of our countries in Africa has to be, one, the equipment and the network and the skills have to be there. Two, the business model must be profitable. If it is not, how can you transport power from the generation company to the user and lose 30% along the way?
Wow.
It's not possible.
Is that a function of business or the equipment and technology or what?
As a function of the technology and the equipment. The equipment has been around now, most of them, over 40 years. Some are approaching 50 years. Back from the days of ECN, we still have equipment that are existing. So these things has to be 5-year lifetime, 10-year lifetime, 15-year, where they are all replaced. We are not replacing anything. So when the DISCO is looking at it, they're saying, okay, if I'm going to replace it, I have to charge.
Yeah.
Now, if you charge, our purchasing power and capacity to pay for that does not exist. You cannot ask a Nigerian to pay 80 naira per kilowatt hour, 100 naira per kilo. It's not possible. But that's the cost of electricity. That's the real cost of electricity. So now we're paying 40 naira, 50.
What's the top range now?
I think it was about 57.
Wow.
But I know they keep raising.
And what about the people?
Well, our behavior is a big problem. Truly, for Nigerians to enjoy stable power, they must pay for it. You cannot, yell about no electricity, but then when the bill comes, you didn't pay for the bill, or you paid only 10%, or you are even, bypassing the payment system. You cannot complain when you are. So our users need to understand that until everybody pays for the consumed energy, there is no way there will be improvement. Because you and I may pay a little bit higher, and we'll complain and say our bills are too high.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think mine is too high now.
It's true.
I pay more than 100,000 in a month.
And there are customers like you.
And in a 4-bedroom house.
There are customers like you that pay a lot. But you are doing it for the others that are piggybacking on top of you. Because nobody is paying full energy charge. In a local environment, if we go to collect money, we are looking at 30% capacity from the customers.
I mean, did the people assume that maybe politicians convinced them at some point that electricity should be free? Or what could have happened?
That's what they tried to do. Because, we have the system, like, say, you look at the senatorial districts. They have what they call these constituency projects.
Yeah.
Constituency projects, a lot of them will say, okay, we'll put street lighting for you. We'll bring electricity to you. We'll bring boreholes to you. So people look at those services as dividends of what they have done for that politician. So why would they pay for electricity? He brought it to them.
That one of our biggest problems in Nigeria is we haven't quite located ourselves in the pageant of time to say, where are we coming from? Why are we where we are? Where exactly are we going? Maybe indeed, because a lot of Nigerians are not earning much. Some are not earning anything at all. How do you expect them to pay for the energy itself? However, if they were the ones generating the energy themselves, or locally or something, or experimentally, perhaps they could enjoy it for free if they want.
Yes, I agree with you. There are efforts now in Nigeria for doing distributed energy. Small microgrids that are local, or even renewable energy systems that are in the user's control, so that he's behind the meter. So he's the one who is actually creating, generating, and also using. And his leftover can now be shared back into the grid. So that now we have additional generation systems. But those also are cost prohibitive for the local...
Yeah, for the local people. Yes. One of the things I've experimented with before in terms of thought is, maybe our institutions where we're producing engineers, polytechnics, universities where they have electrical engineering students, could do like, group work whereby they could experimentally begin to, and we have maybe more than 120 of this kind of, of course, universities alone. We probably would have about 250 universities and polytechnics and monotechnics around the country. And if they could spread out and, each of them could do those group projects, one class to the other, year 2, year 3, 4 can do their own. And, you know, in a way, they begin to try and solve very local little problems.
Absolutely.
Around their community. Absolutely. Maybe that would help the federal government from this problem. What do you think?
I agree. I think our universities have a duty to do research, experimentation, as well as, you know, trials and pilot programs, so that we can see what would work. And even if it fails 3 or 4 times, eventually you will come up with a system that we can use. And our universities also need to look at it where these students that are coming out will already come out with a knowledge.
Exactly, a practical knowledge.
Yes.
Something that can be on their CV already.
But at the end of the day, when our universities always focus on the theoretical part of engineering.
Yes, it's incredible.
Yes.
And now we're stuck with a scenario where we give a lot of these engineering contracts out to companies coming from China. I'm not putting them down, you know, but then they bring their own people down to the laborers, and they say, oh, well, sorry, your own people are not experienced.
Well, they don't even have the skills. So really our universities have not helped us at all. I think they can do a better job in terms of what can come out, the skills that can come out, as well as the technology that can come out.
And indeed, I must tell you, I think that the academia has also been a problem in Nigeria, because for you to get in there and change curriculum and attitude, it's going to be a major problem.
It's very hard.
Professors are going to tell you, this is how we've been doing it for 100 years. It can't change.
They resist any kind of change as you speak, because they feel like they already know what needs to be taught. They already know what needs to be done. But the issue is knowledge that is already saved doesn't do anything for us. It's knowledge that is created that will help us, in terms of...
And that is peculiar to our environment as well.
Thank you. I mean, if you... Energy is something that is not easily stored.
Exactly.
So once you generate it, like you must use it now. So our problem, if we can just create it and save it, it will change some of the things that we are saying today. Many of the corporations, many of the industries can do that alone, by themselves. They can generate.
I was going to ask you about renewable energy and the fact that, of course, you were talking about energy, saving energy now. That, the option that we know is about putting them in batteries.
Yes.
And in putting them in batteries, that the mining of lithium, uranium, whatever it is else they use, is also another burden on the environment, especially in Africa.
Absolutely.
So, and also the fact that renewables seem not able yet to carry heavy industries that we need in Africa, in Nigeria. We need manufacturing industries, we need heavy industries. Renewables cannot power airplanes, cannot power trains, cannot power ships, for example. What do you have to say about this idea of riding us into this renewable thing?
We need to start gradually, because the smallest scales that we have will now give our system the capacity to now become stable. Because right now the loads is the #1 problem, because we are not generating enough, so the load is a bit high, and when we all use it at the same time, we have a failure. Every time the load is used at the same time, we have a failure. So these renewables now will be our backups. We put them in places that we know are heavy users to bring down the load. And then our grid will now stabilize because loads are equalized. It's now one place, you turn on and then you create a big surge and everything collapses. So that's where we begin. Now, how do we do that? We can do it per industry or we can do it per community. Per industry, like a university now, why can't we generate and also use our own energy in a university?
Within the university?
Within the university.
And in fact, one of my agonies is that there was a time, I think under Minister Fashola, that they said they built some power thing for, I think, University of Ife, Obafemi Awolowo. And they said that the electricity will never, have hiccups in that university. But what I noticed was that not a single lecturer or student of that university was involved.
So that's why we lose.
Some Chinese thing, they delivered it, and and I was, I'm not sure we're doing ourselves a big favor.
All other countries, even though they do not own the technology, they look at it, they copy it, they create their own, and use it until they can perfect. We are not willing to do that. We don't want to try. We just want ready-made.
Let's look at this issue of renewable energy, climate change, you know, African countries are told to, you know, begin to forget about fossil fuel. Without fossil fuel as we know it now, okay, how can we, and of course fossil fuel and how what we understand to be electricity now and all of that, how will our industrial sector ever grow?
I disagree with that, you know, proposals that we should migrate quickly to renewables. It's not possible for us. Those people that are telling us to do that have nuclear generated energy.
Wow.
They have excess. France sells about, you know, 126 trillion watt of energy to other countries. These people telling us they already exceeded what you can require. We have not even got to the plateau. And you're telling us to go to renewable. It's not possible for us at this time. We have to remain with fossil fuels. We have to remain with, you know, the old ways of generating electricity until we have sufficient for the all of us. Then we can go to renewable. But now if we start, it's like we did with telephones. We didn't have phone lines going to our houses. We go to wireless. We jumped. We cannot keep jumping.
We can't keep jumping. Thank you very much.
We have to make
we'll take a short break now. And when we come back, we're still with HF Dauda, Moisoro Fika. We're discussing issues of electricity and then ideas around the diaspora in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. Welcome back, viewers. You're still on your show, The Nationalist. I'll be speaking with HF Dauda on issues around the energy sector and also diaspora Nigeria. And so, you know, before we left, we were talking about, I want you to just help me round up. This conundrum that we have in the energy sector, how do we solve the problem? Ownership of the company, issues of infrastructure and business model, the attitude of the people. Which must be solved at once. If you were perhaps Minister of Power today, and of course if you were made Minister of Power, nobody will say you're not experienced enough. How do we deal with this serious issue?
Well, we have in place, as far as, you know, issues, let me begin from the end, issues of the behavior of the customer, is we have now realized that billing on direct billing is not helping the system. It must be metering system. That metering system also, we know that we have sufficient capability within users to bypass the system. So we need a monitoring system together with the metering system so that we can see usage from a remote location. And we can tell when there is interference with that system. When that is built in, I know I can speak for Abuja.
I mean, people take it in their stride to beat up the staff of beat up the staff of the people who are going to check meters and so on. They take the light to beat them up and all.
So the behavior of the user has to be, you know, controlled by technology, metering, monitoring, and also denial of service, where we can, now if I deny you service, somebody comes behind me and gives it back to you. So it's a fighting battle, but we can use technology where if I deny you service, nobody can give it because I will see it. So those are the things that we have to do on the consumer side. We use technology to make that, have integrity in that system. On the business model, we have to acknowledge that our capacity to pay for electricity is very low. We cannot tell Nigerians to pay 18 naira per kilowatt hour when we know they cannot afford it. So government has to come in and subsidize electricity. It's as simple as that. They cannot say all customers must pay. You cannot do that. Maybe there are those that need to pay. Industries, you know, businesses, they can have a different rate. But for normal, you know, average Nigerian, he should have a subsidized electricity because that will give him the capacity to pay honestly. If you force him to pay money he doesn't have, and he must use electricity, you have created a problem that will not go away. So that's the second one. Government has to come in and subsidize electricity. There is no way around it. Until our income can grow to a level where we can afford it, it has to be subsidized. Then on the business model, when you privatize, you give it to ownership to a group.
Yes.
Maybe it's not the smartest thing to do. Maybe it should be ownership to generality of Nigerians.
Oh.
Maybe all Nigerians should now own the electricity.
None of the disco gencos are quoted.
No.
Oops.
So it should go to all Nigerians. We should.
And that will give a sort of buy-in.
Thank you. Because now, if I own the company and I'm also a user, I have some level of
responsibility
thank
to
you.
that company.
So and then on the other aspect is that there are areas where we should have cooperatives, energies, where the community is the one that built their own, and they are sustaining it, and they are connected to outside distributions in case their own fail. But their own is reliable, and they can have backup upon backup. Now, when we create those small microgrids or cooperatives, it gives the grid itself stability, so that we do not have these national collapses all the time.
Fantastic. Yes. I was going to ask you, sir, to another topic now. You've lived abroad. You lived abroad for about 30 years. Is it true that you can pick money on the streets of New York? Because I'm thinking of it. That should be a very wonderful place.
You see, I have a unique experience. I went to the US when I was just coming out of secondary school. So no hardship was hardship for me. At that age, I'm 18, 19 years old when I went to the US. No hardship is impossible. But there is no truth in the narrative that going abroad is easy. It's not, no, it's a lie. Nobody is there making money, easy money. You work beyond what Nigerians can imagine.
Wow.
In Nigeria, you go to work and you are sitting for 8 hours. You do maybe 30 minutes of work.
Yeah.
In the US, you can stand for 12 hours.
Wow.
Doing work. So, no, it's not easy. And it's what they tell you, we hear the shiny part. A nice car,
because,
a nice house.
The vast majority of the youth of this country, the only thing they are thinking about is how to get out of the country.
As the moment you land...
They call it jackpot from the country.
So when you jackpot, as soon as you arrive, it will take maybe a week. You begin to wonder, why did I come? I'm serious. You have to ask yourself that question. Why did I come? What am I getting here? Because you will slave for the system. By the time you even make it, so you get to a level where now you are, integrated into the system. You have a job, you have a car, you have a driver's license, you have all those things. Now you are part of the system. Now you are a slave to credit.
Yeah, the credit system.
Yes. Average American owes $92,000. Wow. That's 40 million.
Wow.
Average American. That's consumer debt. It's not that it's something he's using as a business. This is something that he's using to eat, to drink, to dress, to 40 million. Every month you're paying off that 40 million. So it's not what they think. But when you tell them that
if you don't pay, they mess you up.
If you don't pay your car note in a month, it will be picked up. If you don't pay your mortgage in 3 months, you will be foreclosed. That means you will be sent packing from your own house. And
there's nothing like, sorry, sir.
What's sorry? It is the system. That's how it's built. That's how it works. And you must, you must comply with the rules of survival. If you don't, you're out. And when you're out, there is no cushioning where you can go. You don't have a family. It's not like you're in Nigeria. You have an uncle here. You have a brother there.
I was writing an article over the weekend, Moisoro, and I remember when APC, this government came in 2015, they had a big economic summit in the Hilton. And everybody came and everybody was complaining how there's no money to run the budget and so on. But there was one white woman that they asked a question in plenary, and she said, I've been hearing about you guys complaining about how you can't fund your budget. I've been to a few countries in my time, and Nigeria is the only country where nobody gets fined for overspeeding. And how then do you intend to balance your budget? And she sat down. And of course, the question was never answered because they didn't understand what does she mean? Nigerians don't do small things like chase fines or for who's overspeeding,
Yes, and that's the system in our not economic, but the government system policy of taxing is totally wrong. We don't have taxation. We have entitlement. We wait, oil is brought out, sold, money is divided, shared amongst. That's all we do.
My, oh my.
In the U.S., the federal government collects taxes on income. So it doesn't matter. They don't go to any industry. They don't collect any gold. They don't have any oil wells. Just income. If you make money, you will give minimum 15% of your income to the federal government. Minimum. The more you make, there are people that are approaching 40 to 50% income tax. That means if you get a check, they will take half of it.
Yeah. In the UK, you make £100,000 and above, they take 55% from you.
Thank you. And then the second tier is that the state makes money on sales tax. So businesses, any transaction, if you buy something, there is a 5% tax, there is a 9% tax. Depending on the state, there is a 7% tax. Every state has a tax on business transactions, sales. So it is up to the state now to build up businesses.
Will we ever be able to run our country and our society and economy like a normal economy?
No, we can't, because we haven't even started. We have to crash everything and begin from the bottom.
Wow.
You know,
And on the day that anybody tries to start, it's going to face with a lot of upheavals because, you know, people now assume so much entitlement and they just want it. And of course, they will blame and say, well, the government has been stealing money for too long, so why would they also? So it becomes a race to the bottom.
Our conversation most of the time when we're having a discussion is that I tell all those that listen to me is that I wish the oil will finish.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Because now that's the start over by force. Because if you don't have that shared, entitlement, then now we have to look at now how do we create, that's the IGR that we speak about. That's just a small portion of what the government needs to do to make money. But that's part of it. You know, if you're in a local government now, what do they get? Zero. Because the money comes to the state. The state now decides that, this local government, let me give them 5 million. And that's it. So the local government has primary schools. They have clinics. They have no money, zero. So how do you begin? We are the ones who are using it, and we're not paying anything to use it. We just expect it for free. It's not possible. Yes, some of us are very poor, but it doesn't excuse you from paying taxes.
Last question, which you may have just 20 seconds only. So there are a number of Nigerians who want to come back home. They want to add value, but sometimes they come, maybe it's attitudinal, they look down on the system, they say, and then they see reaction. People frustrating their effort. Yes. What advice do you have for such?
For those that want to come back, they have to be prepared. You cannot come back from a working system to a broken system and expect that you alone can change it. You can't. But you can make a difference. So we need to come prepared to make a difference. That's all you can do. And then that will create other awareness. People will copy, and then we go from there. Fantastic. You cannot come back to Nigeria and expect that you are going to see what you see in the US, because it's not possible.
Thank you very much, Moisoro, for coming on The Nationalist.
I'm very honored.
Thank you. You've been watching The Nationalist. Thanks for staying tuned. See you next week.